Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your day. Welcome back to the Family Bloodline Network's Financial Literacy Podcast, Wealth Reimagined. I'm your host, Maya Kay. And hey, we made it through another month. Happy Memorial Day. Happy Memorial Day. I hope you are doing some great things, fun things, resting, being with family, remembering those who have served. To allow us to experience the things that we are experiencing today. I don't know if you know, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I thought that it would be really important to kind of tie everything in. That, let me see something real quick. Let's do this. Longer than Okay, I wanted to get my screen set up a little differently here. So again, want to keep it a little bit short today because it's really just to kind of summarize things that we've been talking about lately. We've already talked about getting organized and taking inventory. We've talked about budgeting and the different types and the options that you may have in creating that system for you and your lifestyle and your family. And from there, just digging and taking things apart a little bit more and seeing where can I create some breathing room? Where can I cut, or am I upside down? What do I need to do? Didn't know I still had this subscription. Just those things, trying to find breathing room and money leaks that can be plugged or eliminated. We talked about emergency funds. We've talked about just understanding credit, just having an idea of how that credit score is calculated and the many categories and the weight that those categories put on your actual score. Some tips on how to get your credit score up, or what's causing it to go up and down. So all of those things, and so today I thought it would be appropriate, with it being May and Mental Health Awareness Month. I wanted to talk about why all of this even matters, especially when it comes to your mental health. And financial stress, it can really have an impact on many areas in your life. And I'm sure you've experienced it. And I hope you've not had a major financial crisis. And if you have, then maybe you can relate to some of these things. Maybe you're experiencing financial stress right now with the way everything is going up in cost. Food's going up. Gas is astronomical. Yet we still have those day-to-day expenses and expectations. Our children still need things. Our loved ones still need things. You may have medication. Life doesn't stop, right? Life doesn't stop just because the cost of things are going out. So maybe you're experiencing financial stress currently, because financial stress can affect many things. It can affect your sleep. If your mind is constantly going and processing and you're trying to figure out how and what and how did I get here and what am I going to do, that keeps you up at night. Maybe the amount of debt that you have keeps you up at night. But those types of everyday financial stressors can have an impact on our mental health. It also can cause some anxiety. It can impact relationships. Are you popping off on people because it's misdirected anger? You just had an unexpected expense that you are now upset about, or you're upset of maybe someone maybe caused that unexpected expense accidentally, sometimes maybe not, but you know what I mean? Like it was 9 times out of 10 it was an accident. It was not intentional. But are you now upset and lashing out? So it can impact relationships. It can cause arguments. It can cause, that type of stress in those matters. It could also impact your self-esteem. Are you the person that you're invited to things, but you really can't go, or maybe you do go and you put it on a credit card, which then cycles, adding more stress, more anxiety, um, you know. So it can definitely impact your self-esteem, not knowing maybe how to properly manage, not willing to ask questions to help you get more understanding and grasp and clarity. Financial stress also impacts your decision making because a lot of times when you are in a financially stressful situation, you may not always make the best decision because you're just trying to um, fix the problem, or the problem is an emergency and you don't have an emergency fund. Um, you know, so it can also impact the type of decision making, if you're making the best decision or not, or especially like in the long run. Like, was it I needed to replace my HVAC. It was going to cost me $12,000, and the only way I can get it done because it's the hot of summer, was to take out a 35% personal loan from an online lender. That may not be the best decision. While I understand that the need had to be taken care of, but the decision making, not the best financially, right? So financial stress can impact that. Um, Another thing is just burnout. You could be burned out because of financial stressors. Um, are you working multiple jobs just to keep up? And if you are, please don't take this as you shouldn't be, you need to get it together. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that sometimes trying to do and work, and side hustle and all of that over time, it creates burnout. It can create burnout. You're tired, you're just doing it, it needs to be done. If you don't, you're not going to have A, B, and C, right? And so just think about some of those examples, right? And if you resonate with any of those, think about your own situation and how all of the things that we've talked about up to this point can mitigate a lot of those things. Having a budget means you already know exactly how much money you have. Or looking at it from the other way, you know exactly how much money you don't have. You know that you won't be able to participate in that. But, I'll do it next year, and you can plan for that. Having an emergency fund for like I've said prior, not the if, but the when. It's going to happen. It's going to break. You're going to get a flat tire. The car is going to break down. It's going to happen. It's just when. So being prepared for those so that it does not become a financially stressful situation. It's just like rainy day fun, as some call it, right? I knew eventually this was going to happen. I knew eventually I would run into something like this. I have money set aside for those situations, for this situation, right? So having financial peace, and not financial peace as in probably how many people in financial literacy world are familiar with financial peace, the Dave Ramsey method and all that. But financial peace, just in general, financial peace, it is not about being rich, right? Um, I feel I have a certain level of financial peace. I would like more of it. Like there are things that I would like to still be able to do, um, that I can't do, at least not just get up tomorrow and say, you know what, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna do that. I mean, of course I could, but then I would be hurting other categories and other safeguards that I have in place. And so it's not about being rich, it's more about clarity and preparation, um, boundaries. It's about boundaries and and reducing panic and shame. Again, just think about this for a moment. Think about having a consistent budget and being able to get to zero every time you budget your pay, meaning every single cent has been allocated with a task. Every single dollar that you earn, you have assigned it. It has been given an assignment. It has a specific place that it needs to go. Imagine having that in place, being able to establish and build your emergency fund so that you are prepared. And something happens and you don't have to panic. You can take care of that matter peacefully because you have that money set aside. I mentioned boundaries. You may know somebody that every time they get a chance, they're going to ask you, when they see you, they're going to ask you for some money. You already know. You already know. And depending on where you are on your financial journey, making sure your household is in place, the answer may have to be no, right? I ain't got it this time. I ain't got it today. Or you might need to, I'm not suggesting this, but if it's someone you are really wanting to help or you know that they are in need, they may need to be a line item. The point is, wherever your money is going, it shouldn't throw you off. Reassign it. If you know your brother is going to ask you for some money and you're seeing that he's trying and you're just trying to help him out until he can get over this hump, put that in your budget. Put that in your budget. And maybe before you do that, or you realize it's going to be a consistent thing, the answer will have to be no. That's a boundary. And you know they're going to ask again next time they see you. And if you want to be able to say yes, put that money aside so when they come back, you are able to say yes. Probably with a boundary though, right? Yes, but this is the only time I can give you this, you know? But just think about that. Think about how all the steps lead up to this moment, lead up to how you can have that clarity to create financial peace, how you are more prepared. We didn't talk a lot about boundaries prior, but boundaries would be important here to maintain mental health. Boundaries are important to maintain mental health on any front. Whenever we're talking about protecting our peace, boundaries generally come up in the conversation. And so it's no different with your money, okay? And it's just important to be able to extract some of those behaviors or those reactions and see how money can play a part in a lot of that. Not only can it be showing up in those ways, it can also be showing up in behaviors. I always told my daughters, and most people that know me know that I always talk about the importance of balance in life. And everything in life, there must be a balance. You can't in a healthy manner be too far on one side and never on the other, or vice versa. You have to balance everything in life. A little bit here, a little bit that, but not too much, just enough to balance out, right? And so sometimes things, when it comes to our money, in our money situation, avoidance, like you might avoid spending altogether. And that might seem admirable, but it oftentimes comes down to why you're avoiding. Why are you avoiding spending? Are you avoiding spending because you don't have it? Are you avoiding spending because you can't? You can't. And over time, it's like a system that's going to crash. If you deprive yourself so long or too much, eventually you're going to rebel against your own behavior, because you're going to get tired of depriving yourself of things. You're going to get tired of always telling yourself no. And it can then go so far to the other end of that spectrum, and maybe you're emotionally spending. I think people call it retail therapy, something like that. I'm guilty of it. I'm not gonna lie. When I was younger, I think I was going through a little bit of retail therapy, but that becomes emotional spending. It's just like you think you're gonna feel better because you go buy yourself something nice, and it's honestly probably a very temporary solution, especially depending on how you acquired it. If you acquire it by charging it and increasing your debt, that's probably not as satisfying, honestly, because you realize you are paying for that over a long period of time, and you've actually paid more for it than you thought, than what you paid for it at the register. And so, again, it's just important to balance. It's important to balance things in life. So you can't tell yourself no forever, right? Set it up where you are saving a little bit. It might be no temporarily, right? Let's say, for example, I'll use nails, for example. I'm not one to get my nails done on a regular basis, but sometimes I like to treat myself, right? And that's a balance for me. I'm a single mother. A lot of my resources go to my children, and their activities and their needs and their pictures and everything that comes up for them. And so, unfortunately, I put a lot of my own needs on the back burner, but not forever. It's just not right now for me. And that's when those sinking funds come into play. And we're going to talk about sinking funds more in another episode. But the sinking fund, again, is just a fund that's purpose is to be used, right? So I'm saving up for my manicure, my pedicure, right? So I'll put aside, let's say, like $150 for that, because maybe to you that's normal. You already know that's about how much it costs. But for someone that doesn't go regularly, when I go back, I'm just amazed at how much it's gonna cost me, depending on where I go, right? So let's say, okay, I'm gonna put $150 aside, and I know that I want to go get my nails done because I want to have them done for a specific thing. And so let's assume that specific thing is um, 6 weeks away. And in 6 weeks, I'll get 3 paychecks. So I'll take 150 and divide that by 3. And I know I need to put $50. That's funny that I did that on a calculator. That I need to do $50 every paycheck so that when that time comes, I'll have my $150 so I can do my mani pedi, right? And so that's a sinking fund where you're putting money aside for a specific thing that you know you're going to spend it. And that can help you with maybe just balancing some of those spending habits, those spending behaviors, so that you don't have to avoid it altogether, but then you also don't have to just go crazy. You can delay it, right? Just delay it for a little bit. So another behavior that can cause a lot of financial stress is just ignoring, not checking your mail, ignoring your bills, ignoring those creditor calls and those collection calls. That can get overwhelming. That can get so overwhelming. And instead of just ignoring those calls and those creditors, usually they will set up something with you. Usually they'll set up something with you. Usually you can set up some type of financial plan, like a payment plan of some sort. And avoiding it really just makes the problem worse. And instead of ignoring those calls or pretending like it's going to go away, it's not. You're really just making it worse. You can just discuss with them what's going on. You would be surprised how much creditors will work with you. If you're in that situation, if you're in that boat, you'd be surprised that they will work with you. At the end of the day, they don't want to lose money, right? And you also know that you promised to pay it back. And so y'all can work together on that. But ignoring bills and letting bills stack up or not going to check your mail, that type of stuff can cause some overwhelm and some stress. So again, to keep it brief today, I know you all are probably celebrating, let's though end or get to closing it out with, just some small habits that maybe you can create to help with some emotional relief around your finances. And again, it's really just a recap of things we've already talked about, but maybe you didn't think about it from a financial or a mental health standpoint. So I'll do 4 things, right? Number 1, budgeting. Budgeting is going to be your friend on your financial journey. I don't know what else to tell you. There's really no way around it. There's no way around it. And I encourage you to do it some type of way where you see it on paper or on an app, but trying to do it all up here in your mind and memorizing it, you're going to mess it up. You're going to mess it up. You're not going to be able to remember everything. You're going to forget something. You're going to think something already cleared that didn't. People have gotten away from like check registries and all that because people don't write checks. And that's okay. But you need to have a budget. Non-negotiable. It's non-negotiable. You have to have a budget. That's number 1. Number 2, emergency funds. I think you all, if you don't have one already, you are working on a starter emergency fund. Anywhere from $500 to $2,500. Let me know in the comments where you are on your starter emergency fund. This starter emergency fund is crucial to you ending the cycle of charging things, using credit cards. If you're trying to get out of debt, the starter emergency fund will help you do that. The starter emergency fund is a starter because it's not enough to cover a true financial emergency, meaning job loss, or maybe your spouse, you and your spouse, I should say, are going to have a baby. And so one person's going to be home. So ideally, an emergency fund, not your starter, but your real emergency fund, like your established, that's a better way to describe it, should have 3 to 6 months of expenses. I'm going to say expenses. It should have enough to cover those expenses so that you don't feel the impact for 3 to 6 months. I personally agree with the idea of like if you are partnered, that you have at least 3 months, right? You could always keep going, like kind of gradually, always set goals, right? We got the 3 months, cool. Hey, let's get it to 4. Hey, let's get it to 5. But I think 3 months is good when you're partnered with somebody and there's 2 incomes in the household. If it's just you really want to get 6 because there's no other income in the household to fall back on, right? So be thinking about that too. Be thinking about when we think of goal setting and setting smart goals, start an emergency fund to stop the bleeding, get out of debt, but gradually increasing that. And with the way things are nowadays in the economy, I know a lot of people talk about having $1,000 as your starter. I don't believe really in one size fits all advice. And I think a lot of what your starter emergency fund comes down to is your income, your expenses, where you are in life. That's why I'm suggesting a range of $500 to $2,500. $500 definitely isn't going to cover much when it comes to an emergency. And again, it's a starter. But $500 might prevent you from charging a unexpected plane ticket for, a medical emergency and putting yourself in further debt. So just be thinking about, okay, here's how much I make. Here are my expenses. Oftentimes too, the starter fund will depend on if you even have margin in your budget to do anything. And if you don't, you need to create some, because it's important to have money set aside, again, for unexpected expenses and emergencies. The third thing that will help you is just being organized, and you should already be there. You should already be organized. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Get organized. Also, have a space where you do your money budget, where you do a check-in to see how are you already over budget? Are you on track? But have a designated area or a designated folder. If your app that you use or your bank that you use does reports, but just have a process. Have a process. If you have ever had a business or run a business, or you're thinking about it, the first business you need to learn how to run is your home. You need to learn how to run your home. You need to get organized. You need to have a budget. Where's the money going? Okay. And then the fourth thing would be automation. Automation can absolutely help reduce financial stress because it's a set it and forget it mindset. Set it and forget it. You got to get that starter emergency fund going. $10 every paycheck is just automatically going over here. No number is too small. It might take you longer to get there, but you got to start with something. You got to start somewhere. You got to show up for yourself. You got to be consistent. So if all you can do is $5, do $5, please. What are you ashamed of? First of all, it's your budget. Nobody even knows what you're doing. But if all you have is $5, do $5 every pay period and start building up a savings. Then that's when that discipline comes in. That's when those boundaries come in. You had something come up unexpected, but is it an emergency? Does it mean that you need to go wipe out the $50 or $100 you've gotten it up to since you're doing $5 or $10 a pay period? How is it going to even feel to have to start over? So just things to think about. That's all I have. I went over, I said I was going to keep it short, but I'm right at about 30 minutes again. So I hope you are okay with spending this time with me again on this Monday. But just to close it out with a thought here, just remember financial wellness is mental wellness. Financial wellness is mental wellness. And when we create clarity around our money, we create more peace in our lives. And I hope you can see that connection with having that budget, having that emergency fund, having things organized, and automation. Automate those things. Automate that money to go there. Automate that money to go to that bill. Set these things in place to support you. Sometimes these things have to be done to support you, because supporting you is also supporting your mental wellness. So that's it for today for me. Again, I'm Maya K. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And I will see you next Monday. Have a great week.